again. My name is Zolna. This is the 27th of March 2018. Just watched a rather interesting 52-minute and 3-second video, the final of 24, John F. Kennedy. This was published on December the 8th, 2015, and it was put up by the final 24. When I got it, it had 107,547 views. I thought it was a very well done little video. And it talks about John F. Kennedy. It talks about his wife Carolyn. It talks about his company, his publishing company, named George. Why do you think he named his company George? Huh? Well, he was telling the world who killed his father. That's why he named his company George. Now, for folks that have been watching me for a while, you know that I'm a private pilot. I'm acrobatic certified and I'm high performance rated. And I took a number of hours of flying on instruments. The reason that I didn't complete my instrument flying course was because I didn't fly enough to feel I'd be safe flying at night. But I do have a fair amount of instrument training. Now, I understood from what I read about JFK, he also had instrument training. Not a great deal, but he did have some training. The airplane that he purchased was a Saratoga, which is a high-performance Piper kind of aircraft. I'm very familiar with it. I've got quite a few hours in an A-36 Bonanza, which again is a high-performance, or an F-33 Bonanza, which is again a high-performance aircraft. And one of the things I'm certain that was in his airplane was an autopilot. Now, Martha's Vineyard has a VOR. Now, if you don't know what a VOR is, it's a very high frequency omnidirectional bearing indicator. And each VOR has its own designation, so you can tune in to that VOR. Martha's Vineyard is MVY. Now, anyone that's going to be flying out over the ocean at dusk would have tuned in to Martha's Vineyard and would have set their autopilot to fly directly towards Martha's Vineyard. So I don't believe the narrative that's explained in this video where he got spatial disorientation, didn't understand where up was. I could see that could happen. But not if you've got an autopilot. The airplane would have flown right to that VOR. You didn't have to touch anything. And when he got inside of the airport, he would disengage the autopilot. I had a friend, actually he was one of my bosses, and he bought a high-performance airplane, and he was learning how to fly, and he got into a bad situation. He got into clouds. So what he did immediately was he just punched in autopilot. It kept everything in a configuration that he was in. Attitude, direction, everything stayed the same. He finally, in about 15 minutes, came through the cloud bank. Now, if he wouldn't have done that, he probably would have died. I don't believe J.F. Kennedy developed spatial disorientation for the reasons that I just gave you. Now here's another reason. Hillary Clinton would never have become Senator of New York if he wouldn't have died. Now here's another thing you want to think about. When that airplane crashed, it crashed in the Atlantic Ocean. They never would have looked for me, you, or anyone else. You know why they looked for him? Bill Clinton ordered the Navy to go find the wreckage and the remains. And as soon as they were found, they were cremated. I believe that his airplane was blown out of the sky. I believe both he and his wife and his sister-in-law were murdered for a whole lot of reasons. Naming his company George in reference to George H. Bush, who I believe was instrumental in killing his father. Folks, the pieces of the puzzle couldn't be any clearer. I've just explained to you why I don't believe that he developed spatial disorientation. Now, he could have. but I don't think that he did. I've flown over the ocean many times. I had 93 flights to Catalina Island. Catalina is about 28 miles off the coast. And I've spent many hours on Catalina, and I've flown back at dusk. I tune in Oceanside VOR. Catalina has a VOR as well. I think Oceanside has 115.3, if I recall correctly, on the designator. And the airplane flies right towards the VOR. The airport that I was going into was Carlsbad, which is right to the right of the VOR. That's why I don't believe the narrative that's shown in this video. And again, the reason they were cremated is because there was burn marks from the explosion. Hey, we're all entitled to an opinion. I'm basing mine on my own flying experience. I know what I would have done, and I'm sure that that's what he would have done, flying in a situation he's not all that comfortable in. You just tune in to VOR, MVY, direct. Boom, you're there. Now, if his plane didn't have an autopilot, my theory might be all wrong, but I'm willing to bet that it had an autopilot. I'm going to do some research. I'm going to get the designator of his airplane, the registration number, and I'm going to find out what kind of equipment it had in it. I'll let you know what I come up with. Let me know what you think. There are a lot of pilots out there. Let's hear what you come up with. Thanks for listening.